Welcome to the Thyroidless Life podcast with me, Dr. Rebecca Warren. I'm so excited for you to join me on this journey. This podcast is for you if you're wanting to know how to heal and best support your body after thyroidectomy or after being diagnosed with a thyroid dysfunction. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, had my thyroid removed, high-dose radiation, and my gallbladder removed, all by the time I was 20. By the time I was 21, I had health issues, struggling with depression, anxiety, brain fog, weight loss resistant, and it wasn't until I drew a line in the sand and decided to take my health back did things start to change. I spent the last decade and a half implementing protocols and healing strategies to reclaim my health and take it to the next level. On this podcast, I'll be sharing the most up-to-date studies, biohacks, and protocols, my own personal journey and recommendations on this healing path. I'll be bringing in experts in different fields of health to help you understand what you need to know to take back your health, as well as sharing my own clinical experience and coaching others that have been on this same journey. My hope is that when you listen to this podcast, you have the knowledge you need to get started and you feel empowered to take your health to the next level. All right, guys, welcome back to the Thyroidless Life podcast. Let's jump right in. How do you lose weight after thyroidectomy? Listen, this is the number one question I get asked on social media, when I do webinars and messages, emails. In fact, it's one of the most common health goals that people have when they come in to see me or they're doing a virtual coaching session is, how do I lose weight? And the thing is that I have noticed, not just from my own personal experience, but what I've noticed is that when I get asked this question, it's never coming from a place that's full of vain. It's not like, hey, I want to lose weight because I want to be skinny. And that's it. You know, you want this bikini body. It's usually coming from a place of not understanding why your body is not working with you. It's coming from a place of like, I feel like I'm gaining weight and I haven't changed what I'm doing, or I'm trying to eat healthier. I'm trying to work out and I just can't lose weight. It's coming from a place that feels like your body is working against you and it doesn't feel like your body's going to work with you. And so a lot of times those questions are looking for that perfect or right diet or that perfect or right workout plan. Like, what do I need to do so that this can stink and change? And I get it. Like when I hear that, and when I process that, it's so different for me as a doctor when I'm helping people than for other doctors when they hear it. I remember when I was between 19 and 20, I went to my doctor, and this was after I had had my thyroid removed, right? I felt fine. I had lost this weight after I had my thyroid removed and radiation, and then it slowly crept back, right? And I was working out, and I decided to do this kind of vegan way of eating. I was trying to work on my health, and I couldn't get my body to change. And I'll never forget talking to my doctor and him trying to tell me that I was eating too many calories. In fact, he was like, "Do you understand how calories work? Calories in, calories out. If you're eating more than what your body can use, then you're going to gain weight." And I'm sitting there like, why is this guy talking to me about this? Like, obviously I know that. That's why I'm trying to work out. That's why I'm, became vegan. And so what ended up happening is I worked out more and I restricted my diet more. I needed to eat less calories. That's what my doctor said, this guy that I trusted to lead me and guide me to health. And so I became raw vegan because I thought, obviously I'm not eating right, and obviously I'm not working out right. Obviously I'm the script. Like it's me. Like it's not my body. Obviously it's not my hormones, because when I would get my blood work done, everything looked fine. They would sign it off and say everything's okay. And so with this question about how do you lose weight after thyroidectomy, it actually is pointing towards a much bigger conversation that we need to have. You and me, you that are listening to this, okay? Because the problem is much bigger than just losing weight. It makes me think of two different things here. Number one, it makes me think about what it looks like to best support your body after thyroidectomy. And most importantly, how to properly heal after thyroidectomy. This was a big one for me to understand. And this is a big one for me to teach, especially if someone has had their thyroid cut out. We're sold on this idea I was definitely sold on this idea when I was 19 years old and when I was 16, when we decided to have my gallbladder taken out. I had this idea. I had my hope. I had my positive outlook. I had everything on my health riding on the fact that if I cut out my thyroid, then I'm going to be well. That my thyroid is diseased, my thyroid is sick, my thyroid's the problem, cut it out, and I'll be good. My gallbladder is sick, my gallbladder is diseased, my gallbladder is causing me pain. If I cut it out, then I'm going to be good. And that's completely false to think that way, to be taught that way, like how we're taught when we go in and make that decision to have our thyroid cut out. It's coming from this false place as if the thyroid functions by itself, and it does not. You don't make a sick organ in a healthy body. Like, you don't make a sick organ just up and down. Your body decides this body, which is since the beginning of human existence, fights to survive, and not just survive, to thrive. Our body every day does the right thing at the right time. It beats the heart. It gets blood flowing. It fights cancer, kills off cancerous cells. We do what we need to do without even thinking about it because of this amazing innate intelligence. And then one day it up and decides to do the wrong thing. No, you don't create cancer in your thyroid. You don't create an autoimmune thyroid. You don't create a hyperthyroid. You don't create a sick thyroid unless your body is sick. And unless there's other areas that are being affected. We have all these synergistic systems throughout our body that interact with one another. And the idea that we can just cut this out and we're good and not given any guidance about what it looks like to heal and what it looks like to take care of cells is detrimental, not just to our health, but it's detrimental to your mindset because now you're not losing weight. So you're thinking that you're not doing something right, that you're doing it all wrong. And the second thing that I think is so vitally important to understand is how your thyroid becomes sick. So let me go back to how do we best support ourselves? In the end, we don't have any studies on the long-term effects of living without this vital organ, right? So really all the guidance you're given is to be on a pill. But this thyroid, which is this butterfly-shaped organ at the base of your neck, your thyroid is vital for every single process in your body. It is vital for all trillion of your cells. T3 binding to that cell is how you create ATP. ATP is energy. This isn't just energy and how you feel throughout the day. We're talking about in order for your cells to do anything and everything, you need energy. In order to produce insulin and ghrelin and leptin, in order to produce estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, in order to produce cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, literally for every system in your body to function well, to do what it needs to do, it needs free T3. And so this organ in different situations, whether you're fasting or in ketosis, whether you're eating more protein, whether you're eating more plant-based foods, whether you're really, really stressed or whether you're not really stressed, whether you're on vacation, your body releases T3 according to what the needs are, whether you've lost weight, whether you've gained weight. And it changes, it's dynamic, and it's affected by its internal and external environment. And this idea that we can take the place of that organ by a pill is just crazy. And a pill for most people that doesn't even change very much for years, which is also crazy to think about. And so those two areas were, number one, this idea that if we cut out our thyroid, we're fine. And number two, what it really looks like to support and heal after thyroidectomy, we're just not having that conversation enough. We're not taking a step back and wondering, hey, wait a minute. The reason why I'm not losing weight could be that, number one, it has nothing to do with me being messed up, or it has nothing to do with how I'm eating. Although we are going to talk about that because nutrition is essential and feeding and nourishing, fueling your body is essential. But taking a step back, like if you've tried to do something like a paleo or more plant-based, or eating more nutritious, nourishing foods, and it's not happening. Like for me, I changed up how I ate in a way that was nourishing, but it still wasn't working. Again, guys, I'm going to give you some insight on how to best eat and support your body. So stay tuned to that. Okay. But what I'm saying is you can't take on a new way of eating. You can't take on a new workout regimen. You can't take on these health things. You can't start detoxing and fasting and doing all these things, especially if you want to see the results. If you want to see the best results that you can possibly get, you cannot do all of those being suboptimal with your hormone ranges. Let me say that again. The fact that your doctor is either number one, not ordering the right test, or number two, not interpreting the right test, or number three, not interpreting the test appropriately, correctly for you, someone who's had their thyroid removed. That is going to stop not just your ability to lose weight, but your ability to be optimal, your ability to function at a level that is healing, that is fighting cancer, that's preventing disease. If you are not in those optimal ranges for you, then you're never, forget about losing weight. Nothing's really going to be well, because the T3 is so fundamental for so many different processes in the body. And the second thing is understanding, let's say you get those, hormone levels as it should be, but you have to heal your body from not just the trauma and the stress that is surgery, and if you've had radiation, like what that means, but also what caused the issue in the first place, whether it's toxicity in gut microbiome or mold or Lyme or whatever that may be. So what it looks like, I feel like I tricked you guys. I didn't mean to trick you guys, because you're like, oh yes, I'm ready to listen to this and lose weight. And I'm over here telling you, guess what? This is going to be a lifelong process of healing. And you're probably like, lifelong? Yeah, but the good news is, I'll tell you this, I've been on this journey for myself for a decade and a half. And I can tell you this, no matter how much I invest in my health, the food that I eat, the supplements I take, the care I get, the clinics I go to, because listen, even as a doctor, I help take care of so many people. I need someone to help me. There's a lot that I do. But no matter how much I invest, no matter how much I do, how I feel and function now will always be what it felt like when I sat in that doctor's office and I heard that I had cancer. It would always be, and I feel 20 times better than when I woke up and I had to recover from that surgery. What I do now guarantees a few things for me: that I'm chipping away at the stressors in my body that is stopping my body from being able to heal itself, because that's what you're doing. The body will heal itself. There's just stressors that are in the way, and those have to be addressed. So let's take a couple steps back here. Let's talk about what you need to pay attention to when it comes to your labs, okay? This is important because, guys, like 7 to 8 times out of 10, when someone asks me about being able to lose weight, they don't have the right lab work for themselves, or they're not in the right ranges for themselves. So the first thing to understand, there isn't studies. Again, let's go back to this idea that there's not long-term studies on what happens. We know that the thyroid is affected by the ovaries, and the ovaries affect the thyroid, and the adrenals is in there as well. The adrenals affect the thyroid, and the thyroid affects the adrenals. And now we go in there and remove this. Really, what you should picture it is as a triangle. One point is ovaries or testes. One point of the triangle is your thyroid. One point of the triangle is your adrenals. And they work synergistically like that. And when you remove one, or one's kind of like dysfunctional, it affects the other ones, and vice versa. So here we are, we removed one thing out of that triangle, or a three-legged stool. That's a good one too to understand. You have a three-legged stool, you got thyroid, your testes or your ovaries, and then your adrenals. And if I remove one of those legs, you still can't stand. And so we don't know how that affects, and we don't know how to best support it. So guys, remember, there's always a disclaimer on my podcast. This is for educational purposes only, but I want to share with you guys what I am seeing with individuals that I am helping, that are my clients, that work with me, that have worked with me, what I've seen through the years, not just with them, but even for myself. And this is something that, of course, you should speak to your healthcare provider about, whoever that may be. What I have found is, for whatever reason, the ranges look very different for someone who's had thyroidectomy. And you're probably wondering, how do I know what my range should be for me? Like, how do I know what I should strive for? What should I do? I'm going to share with you what medical ranges are, which is pretty much what you find on your lab work. And I'm going to talk about some functional ranges. And then I'm going to talk to you about what I've seen for people that have had their thyroid removed, and what I've even seen for myself. So right off the bat, within medical ranges, what we see for people that have a dysfunctional thyroid is the ranges are a lot more broad. You can go like for, free T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, you can see like a 2.3 to a 4.4. And if you're at 2.4, you're good, right? Like, okay, whatever, you're at the bottom, you're good. They'll send you out the office. That's what happened to me. I was in the twos and I was in the low twos. And okay, your labs look fine because you're within ranges. But what we're finding now is that it's not just being within range. It's about being in the optimal range. And so within medicine, it's too broad. And then there's this functional approach, like this functional medicine approach that says, well, instead of having like a free T3, and I'm using one lab test out of the multiple that you can get done. So now functional, like in this alternative approach to what it looks like to help your thyroid, they're saying, okay, actually you should be in the upper quadrant. So if it's 4.4, then you should be at a 3.7. And this is for individuals with a thyroid or dysfunctional thyroid. What have I noticed for individuals that don't have a thyroid is that they're going to be on the upper end of the range. 4.4, 4.3, 4.5. They're right there. And this is really interesting. The reason why it's really interesting is because I've seen this story happen multiple times where someone has their thyroid removed and their practitioner is working with them to try to find an optimal level for them. And they get to this level where it's 4.4 and the range is through 4.4. But once they get there, there's like this clarity. They start losing weight. They see, they have more energy. They don't have to take a nap in the afternoon. Like there's this kind of like feeling of, oh my gosh, like I actually see some type of improvement. They start losing weight, guys, start losing weight, right? But also a lot of other amazing things. Their hair stops falling out. There's all these things. And then they go to a follow-up with their doctor and their doctor's like, looks at that piece of paper and says, oh my gosh, this is so high. We got to cut you back. And so that's what they do because it's too high. And then what happens? All the symptoms come back. And that's a problem because instead of listening to the patient, we're going off of a piece of paper whose averages are for those that have a thyroid. And it stings because I hear that. I've seen it multiple times now where they come in and they're like, man, I thought I was on this right dose. And my doctor coming back and now I'm symptomatic again. Well, what do you think that means? Could it be possible that because you're an individual, your bio-individuality inside of your body is your own, that what you need is going to be different than what I need? And what I need might be different than what someone with a thyroid needs. And what you need is something different. You and I both need something different than someone with a thyroid. So what do? Well, let me go and tell you this. Back in the day, within medicine, when there were thyroid disorders, guess how it was diagnosed? They would look at the patient and look at the symptoms. Because when you're not optimal with thyroid hormones, guess what's going to happen? You're going to gain weight. You're going to feel exhausted. Your hair's going to fall out. You're going to have brain fog. You're going to have memory issues. You're going to see your temperature drop down. All of this are very, very good diagnostic symptoms. But instead of seeing those symptoms, what we're seeing is looking at just lab work. And you feel good. Doesn't matter. Look at your lab work. This isn't good. And so overall, across the board, what I have seen, and remember, everybody is different and you have to know what's right for you. And that's why you've got to have the right practitioner by your side who's able to walk with you with this. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to try things. You have to be able to track changes, right? And so what I've found overall is that people with a thyroid do much better with TSH that's suppressed, with a free T3 that's a higher, and a free T4 that's higher. All right. Of course, keep track of your reverse T3. You'll know that you're on too much. And that's what the episode after this one, we're going to break down the thyroid labs and what they all mean. So stay tuned for that one. And we're also going to talk about nutrition. So stay tuned for that episode as well. But right now, what I want you to understand is trusting what you know. about how you feel and you live in your own body. It's your body. You know that something has changed, right? So before you can even consider anything, you've got to make sure you have the right hormone support. You've got to have the right hormone support. And I always describe it as this way, like hormone healing, like thyroid healing and healing after thyroidectomy. It's like you're going hiking up Mount Everest. I don't ever want to do that. My husband does. I don't ever want to do that. But let's say we were going to do that, right? We're going to hike up Mount Everest. And that's the equivalent of what it looks like to be on this health journey in this toxic, stressful world. Working on your health is hiking that mountain, and it's worth it. The hard work is worth it. The investment is worth it. But what you don't want is take that hike with a backpack full of rocks. That would just be dumb, right? Like that would be hard on you. Why would you do that to yourself? And as you're taking this journey of living the life you're created to live, why are you going to put rocks in your backpack, making it harder for you? And that's why you have to advocate for yourself. You have to know that if this isn't right for me, or if this is right for me, that I need to be here. This is what I need for my body, and have a great team around you that's going to respect that and know that. You know, when I was 20, I had to fire my doctor. And I talk about this a lot. And some people, I had one guy on my radio show get offended about this. And I was like, listen, when I fired my doctor when I was 20 years old, when I went in there with all the information I knew, because, you know, there's these comments about Dr. Google. Listen, if I didn't have Google, you guys on Google, you have access to almost all the same studies that these doctors have access to through PubMed, Science Daily, and Scientific American. You can find some really great information on there to advocate for yourself. But you can also listen to my podcast, and I can provide you that same information, and I'm a lot more enjoyable, I think. But going back to what I was saying is you have to be able to advocate for yourself. And so when I was 20, that was scary to me. Like, first, it was shocking to me that the reason why I suffered for so long is because my doctor didn't know what he was doing. In general, he was an endocrinologist, Florida hospital, supposed to be this great doctor, great hospital, right? But I had to fire him. I had to do this because if I didn't, I don't know where I would have ended up. If I did not advocate myself, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't be a doctor. I wouldn't be helping thousands of people worldwide. And I fired him because I needed someone that was willing to walk alongside me and hear me out. Not just look me in the eyes, but hear me out. And, you know, nowadays it's a really unique situation now because I don't prescribe medication, but how is it that I'm working with so many people that have had their thyroid taken out or they're not on thyroid medication? It's because you go to someone for what their expertise is in, right? I went to this endocrinologist because they had, you know, prescribing power and they understood the drug. And everything else I needed to do, I went to another practitioner for it to help my whole body heal itself, to best support my body. That's how my health was transformed. Is because I worked on my body as a whole. And that's how, you know, these functional practitioners like myself help people, right? So you've got to understand, you've got to trust how you feel in your body and what you know to be true. And if that means that the range for you is going to look very different than someone else who walked into the office without a thyroid, then that's what you need to stand by. And that's what you have to advocate for yourself. Listen, guys, I have had conversations with practitioners back when I was still in school, and they didn't know what I was in school for and my knowledge, but I had a full-on fight with a functional medicine practitioner, which is disappointing, about he thought that someone without a thyroid could do just fine without thyroid medication for 4 or 5 days, and that the ranges were different. And this is someone, if you guys could have heard that conversation, because I'm just so tired of that. I'm tired that we're given misinformation, that you're given misinformation about what it looks like to best support your body, whether it's in, you know, the medical field or whether it's in some alternative field. You can feel better. You can feel amazing. You can see your health transform and you can be at the weight that is healthy for you if that's what needs to happen. And if you don't need to lose weight, you're not going to lose it. When your metabolism well, it'll do whatever it needs to do to support you. It can happen. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Living without a vital organ, it's going to be different. It might be harder, but it can happen. You got to do the work and it can happen. But the first step is you've got to get those proper thyroid hormone levels for you. And so I told you overall what I have seen. The next thing is this idea of, okay, once you get your thyroid removed, everything's fine. So no. So how does the healing process start after thyroidectomy? So the first thing you have to do is you have to get those hormones optimal. Oh, not only do you have to get those hormones optimal, but you have to understand, let's go back to what I said a little bit ago about how the thyroid is, it's an adaptive organ. It changes according to what's going on, which means this. Do you think being on the same dose for 5, 10, 15, let's say even 1 year could make a lot of sense depending on like what your body needs? So listening to your body, listening to seasons and understanding that, yeah, sometimes the dosing has to change and you have to be able to get the blood work to support that, understand the symptoms and be okay with talking to your practitioner about changing it. That's really important. Being okay with that, trusting yourself. I think a big issue is I've had people say to me, you talked about how I need to get this blood work done. And I talked to my doctor and my doctor said, no, I don't need it. What should I do, Dr. Rebecca? And I'm like, what do you mean? What should you do? Go find someone else. Go find a practitioner that will order the labs with you, that is listening to you. And it's always so shocking. And I understand that's where I started as a patient, but you've got to do that, right? And you've got to understand that there is a hormetic effect even to the medication that we're taking. And what that means is that hormesis means kind of there's this period of stress that's good, whether it's supplemental stress, whether it's a medication, because that's something foreign for the body, but it's a good stressor for us because we need it, right? But there always comes a time where the body it's good when it's not good and it needs to change. And why? Because there's diversity. There's diversity in how much hormones we're releasing at different times of the days and different seasons. So changing dosing according to what's going on, according to your symptoms, according to your blood work is vitally, vitally important. Okay, so I got my blood work done. What's the next thing I need to understand? So when I work with someone that, have had their thyroid removed, what I look at is number one, get yourself out of the hole. Don't walk around with a backpack full of rocks. The next thing is, how do we help the body to rebalance itself according to what's going on right now? And then the next step is, what can we work towards? What can we heal from what was happening in the body in the past? Okay. So when you've gone hypothyroid, when you haven't been on the optimal T3 amounts and T4 amounts for you, things slow down and it can cause issues even when you've gone on the right dose. Even after you've gone on the right dose, you might feel 100 times better or you might feel better, but you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel that great. I feel bloated after eating broccoli, or I feel exhausted at 2 or 3 o'clock, or I've lost some weight, but I'm stalled. Well, the reason why is because once that T3 goes on, there's things that are affected. I see a lot of people whose adrenals just become depleted because they went so long without the adequate hormone, this active hormone, and they had a function from a place of high cortisol, which drained their adrenals. And so the cortisol compensated, and now that they're fine with their, thyroid hormones, their adrenals are so depleted and they need adrenal support. Or let's talk about the fact that we know that free T3 decreases stomach acid production. And so if you have decreased stomach acid production, not only are you not properly absorbing your food, but now you've created an environment in your gut that creates bacterial overgrowth or fungal overgrowth. So Dr. Beck, are you saying that now I have gut issues? Yeah, possibly if you have low T3, right? How about low T3 affecting menstrual cycles or insulin? So what you have to realize is that once you've gone suboptimal, you might need things like mineral support or B vitamins. Like there's different things that you have to look at. Like, okay, how do I get myself here? And these first two steps that I do, getting people when they're able to get on the right amount of hormone, when they're able to address these things that have developed, those two things, I do it to get people to feel better. But this is the catch. You don't get to feeling better just so you can sit there and you just feel better. You get to feel better so that you can go to that next step. And it's looking at the things that contributed to your thyroid cancer or your hyperthyroidism or your hypothyroidism. Well, Dr. Rebecca, what do you mean? Cancer is genetic. Oh, you're going to want to stick around. You want to subscribe to my podcast because we're going to dig in deep about what does the studies and research say about the causes of thyroid cancer, or what does the research say about hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism or even autoimmune thyroiditis, because what we're starting to see goes back to what I said originally. The body doesn't up and decide to stop functioning. The sick body creates sick symptoms, creates sick tissue, creates sick thyroid. Sick cells create those things. And that's why, in the end, unless you're working on your health, all of these things can continue to cause issues. You can continue to get diagnoses. And when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and I was in this place of hopelessness of like, I don't understand how this happened to me, and I was so young. I don't really quite understand, like, what? If this just happened to me, then I can't do anything for my health. I'm just going to have diabetes. I'm going to have heart disease. I'm going to have all these things by the time I'm 30 or 35 because I had it so young. But when I took a step back and I took control of my health and I had a better understanding, and now as a doctor, I have a whole new understanding of all of this, but I'm talking when I was a patient. When I saw my body differently as this amazing, self-regulating, self-healing body that does the right thing at the right time, and that when it stops doing the right thing at the right time, then it means that there's an underlying imbalance, this underlying stressor that needs to be addressed. You have to trust that. You have to know that healing will never come from a pill, a potion, a lotion. Healing will never come from the avocado, celery juice, or supplement. Healing comes from your body that was put there the day you were conceived. You have what you need. When it doesn't do what we know it's supposed to do, it's because there's underlying stressors, physical, chemical, or emotional. You start removing those stressors, allow the body to adapt, it will heal itself. So I'm really excited to dive deeper, not just on lab work, but on nutrition. So make sure you guys are subscribing. And if you found this episode to be helpful, leave me a review. That would be really awesome. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. All right. Hey guys, Dr. Rebecca here, the Thyroidless Doc. So glad you were able to tune into today's podcast episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, I ask that you subscribe to the Thyroidless Life podcast so you can stay up to date on all my new episodes for you, and leave a review. If this was helpful for you, just let me know by leaving that review and tell me where you're from. I love to see who's tuning in and where they're from. You can also connect with me at my website at drrebeccawarren.com, as well as on Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Rebecca Warren, also the Thyroidless Doc. On Facebook, I have a free Healing After Thyroidectomy group. I created this group in hopes of having a community for people to join where they want to get better, where they want to take back their health, they want to reach the health goals that they want to reach, and they can feel encouraged by others that are on the same journey and being led by me. So I hope you find us on Facebook at Healing After Thyroidectomy group. Can't wait for you guys to hear the next episode.